Barbara Grau was a staff attorney at LCBH, and this is in her honor. From all reports, she was a client-centered attorney who had an incredible heart and gave everything for her clients, and she passed in 1998. The reason we're giving it to Trish this year is because she was also a former LCBHer, and she's done so much incredible work for fair housing in Chicago, both at LCBH. She was instrumental in preparing our foreclosure reports that I spoke so much about earlier in the program, and since she's left, she's become the executive director at Chicago Area Fair Housing Alliance, CAFHA, and she's really done incredible work, making CAFHA, better than it's ever been. It's incredible all the work that CAFHA does. Most recently, they just passed the Just Housing Initiative. CAFHA is a membership organization, and Trish will be modest and say that it was a coalition effort, and it was. There are a lot of people involved in all the things that Trish and CAFHA have done, but at the same time, they need strong leadership, and they have it with Trish. One final thing I'll say to connect the Just Housing to the work that we do is, if Trish can protect people with criminal records from having that impact their ability to even apply for housing, how much more that must motivate us to have to, to try to protect people with eviction records. So Trish is an inspiration in that regard. And with that, I'll have Trish just accept the award.
Yes, I will be very, very brief. Thank you so much. So this is truly a tremendous honor, especially coming from my former colleagues who I have so much admiration for. It's funny in the Chicago housing advocacy realm how frequently you'll meet people who started out at LCBH. And I feel like LCBH is kind of an incubator of sorts, a place where attorneys, social workers, and other housing advocates can become steeped in the housing issues that impact Chicagoans, because they see firsthand the overwhelming impacts of housing instability on real people's lives. And you carry that with you, whether you're personally impacted, whether you've struggled to pay your own rent, or whether you've lived in unsafe housing conditions. When you walk alongside people day in and day out who struggle and whose lives are irreparably harmed, you see the deep roots of this broken system. And as Frank mentioned, this is an inherently racist system that was made by design. But LCBH is also a place where you see the possibilities. You see the potential for change. And none of that change can be accomplished by one person. So although I'm so honored to accept the award, I really struggled accepting it. Mark, I think, was like, can you just please graciously accept this award? And I really had a hard time doing that. Because this is really an effort that takes a movement of people. And when you spoke about the Just Housing Initiative, that was not just CAFHA, that was Housing Action Illinois. I think Gianna is here today, I hope. And a whole coalition of people who backed that, because we know that true transformational change is a long game with many bumps in the road that requires a whole movement of people. So I want to thank all of the courageous housing advocates, many of whom are here today, CAFHA's staff, CAFHA's board of absolutely amazing leaders, and the coalitions that we work with, and especially those who themselves struggle with housing instability, who don't ever get a chance to escape this work because they're living it every day and they're still advocating for those around them. I'm so proud and humbled to work with all of you in this fight. I just want to mention one thing before I go. I was so pleased to see in the recommendations, the recommendation to participate in the regional assessment of fair housing process that Cook County and the city of Chicago recently launched, and to make sure that strategies that come out of that report are targeted to evictions and to housing instability. Because after the data that we saw today, there's no denying that because of the disparities based on race, this is a fair housing issue. And we've been able to convince Cook County and the city of Chicago that they need to put their money where their mouth is and actually dedicate resources to make sure that the real experts, so those who have faced discrimination, those who have faced eviction and housing instability, have a seat at the table. So at the end of the month, we're going to be releasing an RFP for what's called a community convener grant. These are small grants for organizations that organize people impacted, the true leaders, and I hope folks in this room will consider applying for that grant. Thank you.